Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to our series of interviews that the Economy Next is doing with the candidates, with the activists, and the movers and shakers of this election campaign. We have only a few more days to go for this very crucial election. And today we have with us Dr. Harsha De Silva from the Samagi Jana Balavegaya, who is contesting from the Colombo district. Of course, you know he's been an academic, a think tanker, and a state minister, a deputy minister in the past government. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Arjuna, for the invite.
Yeah. So, how is the campaign going? What is it like the last few days?
Yeah, last 10, 11 days, the campaign is going well. Today I'm in Moratuwa. So we have to campaign across the district. Even though I'm from primarily, that is a very small electorate, 75,000 voters in total. But there are some electorates that are huge, like for instance, Homagama, almost 200,000. Even Moroto is about 145,000. So people like myself who represent small electorates have to try and canvas in the bigger electorates and district wide. It's not fun, but it's tough. But we got to do it.
So, when you are campaigning, are you targeting primarily the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, or are you also targeting the United National Party because of the split in the party?
No, I don't talk about the United National Party. There's no point in doing that. I don't even target Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. I only talk about what I think needs to be done to fix this country. The people are tired of people criticizing other people. they, you only just boil your blood, as they say. And people are, I think, now moving away from that old culture of uh, you know screaming and yelling and finding fault. In fact, I was just speaking to some people little while ago. They said, you know we are tired of this. Just tell us what you plan to do. Politicians should tell the people what their plans are. So I try to follow that approach.
If there is a single major issue in this election, what would it be? Would it be issue of democracy, or the issue of the economy, or what else? What would be the major issue for you?
The major issue is the economy. It is the major issue. I mean, we are so far behind. Every time I campaign, I see, the appalling conditions that some of our people are living in. I mean, yesterday we were in Boralla, in some of the apartment buildings, and smaller than 400 square feet each apartment. Dirty. 676 units in that particular one, and only two working elevators, and each elevator is very small, maybe 5 feet by 4 feet, and to service all those homes. It's squalid conditions after the rain, garbage everywhere. People are desperate. They want better standards of living. And I'm just giving you just one example, right? So we have to fix this country. People have to get a better deal. So that, I think, to me, is the number one priority: the economy.
So, the last 4 5 years was your government. Uh, so, whatever the situation is now, you are also partly responsible, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I just don't want to be, blaming, one party or the other. But we should have been at a far better position by now. You see, we've got the. I mean, just look at what has happened to us. We started out all together, Malaysia, Singapore, Ceylon, Thailand, all these countries. But look at how they are. They've stepped up and started moving from producing simple products to more and more complex products. But thank Mr. Premadasa for at least starting the garment industry, and we are still basically surviving on the income that we get from stitching apparels, whereas the others have moved up from apparels to integrated circuits, from that to computers, from that to other types of automation, and then to cars, and some even planes and rockets. They've gone way beyond us, and we are still stuck there. So you can't blame just 2 3 years. You got to blame an entire welfare politics of this country and cheap politics.
Is the issue a systemic issue, or is it, I mean, does it require huge reform, or is it a matter of will and policies?
Both. There are two things. One is, one must have a vision, right? I mean, I am very, very clear, and I'm very critical of the current regime's rhetoric that we need to build walls around this country, stop imports, and that kind of thing. I believe the only way that this country can develop is if we build bridges from this island to the rest of the world. That's the only way we are going to be able to improve the lot here. The Deshiya Arthika can only be, improved if we expand our marketplace. So that is, if you look at the economic history, you will realize that every time we were prosperous because we were able to expand our markets overseas. So unless we do that, we are not going to be able to make it. And in order to do that, so that is, you need the political will, you need the vision, and of course you need large scale reform. Without reform, we can't become competitive. And if we don't become competitive and move towards producing complex goods and services, we will be stuck here.
But the COVID crisis has really affected our markets as well. Are you expecting, like the US and Europe, which are our principal markets, to recover soon, or what is your expectation?
Well, it would be really unwise if we change our game plan and start looking inwards because of coronavirus. That would be really, really unwise, because this is something that has come and it'll go. Whether we'll get used to living with this, with the vaccine, uh, or things will get back to normal. You see, when the tsunami came, fisher folk didn't go out to sea. Big vessels didn't ply. But soon thereafter, everybody got back to business, right? Because another tsunami is not going to come for another, I don't know how many centuries. So if we are going to get sidetracked, and if we are going to change our sort of the long-term game plan because of coronavirus, then generations to come will blame politicians of today for not having understood an outlier from natural advantages that we have.
It's, what is your opinion about how the government has handled the corona situation? Are you satisfied with it, or you think it could have done better?
Well, I mean, if you start looking at the initial reaction, they didn't really understand how bad the situation was going to be. In fact, it was Mr. Premadasa who warned of a possible calamity in parliament, which was just brushed aside. And then the president wanted to make sure that the country was not locked down until nominations were complete. But after that, things got a little better, and the lockdowns happened, and I think it was managed reasonably well. And I give credit to the leadership and everybody else who were involved. And there, the armed forces, the uniform services played a role, but the biggest role was played by the frontline healthcare staff. And these guys were really out there, the phis, the nurses, the doctors. And don't forget, what I created, the 1990 source area. Even just now, the breaking news is that there's some guy who, sort of ran away from IDH, and he has been apprehended, quote unquote, at the general hospital, and who's out there in full body PPE to ensure that the people are safe, and this coronavirus patient is transported safely to IDH, is 1990 source area, right? So all everyone, played an important role. And the people of this country, wore masks, and tried their best to keep social distances, and therefore the credit goes to everyone for having been able to control it thus far. Now, whether there is a second wave, or whether there is community spread, we don't really know, because I am not 100% satisfied with the statistics that we see from the government right now. And I believe that we need to do more random testing. I believe that the option must be given for anyone to test themselves. And that is the way I believe we're going to be able to, sort of get onto a sustainable platform in moving forward with coronavirus.
So, many of the people from your party as well as the NPP have been telling us that that the Podujana Perumuna has an advantage in their ground game, that they have they have built a sort of a machinery among the government servants and Samurdhi Niyamaka and other welfare officers, and that the voters, particularly those who are living or being subsidized by these welfare handouts, feel obliged to vote for them. So have you encountered that in your campaigning?
Yes, I have. And, it's nothing to be surprised about, because that was the game plan when, this whole Samurdhi movement was begun. And SP Disanayaka, with no shame, said, look, what we did was a political program. We made the people or their children who sat in the polling booth the Samurdhi Niyamakas, and their job was to ensure that over the years they created a network of politically active people through the Samurdhi program. And when you now look at those who get samurdhi, and assess their incomes, you realize that more than half of them should not be getting samurdhi, but they are there only because of politics. And a lot of people who should be on that are not there because also of politics. And then over the years, this network has grown, and with no shame, once again, this time with coronavirus, the distribution of the 5,000 rupees was handed over by Basil Rajapaksa to the local politician. Never in the history has that kind of nonsense happened. So they were obliged, people were obliged to go to the local politician, the Pradeshya Sabha Mantri, who shamelessly wore the port to a shirt and handed out 5,000 rupees, right? And that whole exercise goes to show how low politics have fallen, and how, like you said, welfare handouts is linked to purchasing, and I repeat, purchasing of votes. And our people sometimes get fooled by these politicians, and they believe, look, I might as well, vote this guy who's giving me this handout, but that is ultimately going to end up in, making his life worse off.
But then, how would you counter that? I mean, you knew about that during your tenure, and what reforms did you attempt any reforms, or nothing could be done about it?
No, I mean, the reforms we did was to ensure that there is an independent public service, right? That, that the politician must stay away at the local level from, distributing even relief. For instance, when the floods came, right, that relief was distributed via the additional government agent, or the divisional secretary, as you call them, and no local politician was involved in submitting or preparing lists of people who needed to be given this relief, right? So we did it the way it was supposed to be done. That was the good governance, that people don't necessarily talk about. But this situation has completely changed once again, and we saw this very clearly with the recent statement by Mr. Johnston Fernando in defending the mayor of Kurunagala, who demolished you know 13th century building, by saying, the era that politicians like myself, meaning him, didn't have the power to protect these people, um, is now over. This is a new era, and I can do as I please, and I will not let anybody touch this guy, right? And this is being said out in the open. So that goes to show that things are, going backwards, and whatever we try to do in the Yahaparanya is being reversed by these people.
A few days ago, Mr. Sajid Premadas, at a Q&A, he said that he would support Campaign Finance Act. Are you, during your period, during your tenure, there was no such move by the government to bring forward a Campaign Finance Act, even though there was a lot of push towards that from civil society. Why didn't it happen?
Well, I missed a little
Yes,
after.
yeah, I know. No, what
I,
I said was that Mr. Sajid Premadas, a few days ago, I was at an event where he took some questions, and there he said that he would strongly supports a Campaign Finance Act.
yeah.
So, yeah, so I know that during your tenure, there was a lot of push from civil society, the watchdog groups for you to propose one to that parliament. Why didn't it happen? What stopped you from bringing forward the Campaign Finance Act?
I'll be quite honest with you. People like myself supported it, and we wanted our leadership to bring it forward, but it didn't come through. Right. So I'm really glad that if Sajid mentioned that as a leader he's going to push it through, then it will happen. Right. There has to be that will at the top to make this legislation come true. It is not easy to reform this type of thing, but it needs to be done, and I fully support it.
So when you go before your electorate, when you go before the UNP vote bank, if you like it, how do you differentiate yourself from the UNP for what it is? Yeah.
No, no. I mean, we are UNP, no, Archana. I am UNP as UNP can be, and all everybody who is with me, they are all UNP. There's so UNP, but with Sajid. So the others are UNP with Honorable Ranil Wickramasinghe and others. So the differentiation is the group. That's all. But we believe in the same things, right? And so the people are deciding uh, which group of UNP are they going to stand with? And what I see on the ground is 9 out of 10 people standing with the UNP of Mr. Sajid Premadasa, right? And really, it is the team that makes the difference. Who is on this side with Sajid? Who is on that side with Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe? People look at people, not just blindly about the symbol or the building. So we will see on the 6th where ultimately the UNP cadre, the rank and file and those who have sympathy towards us would stand with.
The two mayors, the two mayors of two big cities in Sri Lanka, Rosie Senanayake in Colombo and Kesara Senanayake in Kandy, they have not declared themselves to be SJB, although some smaller smaller urban leaders like Rehan Javikrama have put their lot with SJB. Are you disappointed with Mr. Kesara Senanayake and Mrs. Rosie Senanayake not declaring themselves?
I'm absolutely disappointed. Look at the Colombo mayor's position. Her own son is campaigning with the SJB, and her photograph is being printed with that of her son and distributed to all homes in Colombo. But she's, I don't know, she's presumably, against SJB and for RW. So I don't know. I mean, it's quite ridiculous if you ask me, and that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. So, that must be confusing for the voters as well.
It is confusing for the voters. It should not have been done. A position must be taken. Of course, the answer is, well, there are families where one member is in one party, the other member is in the other party, and that's true. As I respect that. But when you are in one party and your photograph is being distributed with the other family member who's in the other party, then that confuses the voter. You mustn't confuse the voter.
For most people who are watching this campaign, it looks quite clear that Pudujana Perumuna is ahead. Uh, if you come close, would you consider an alliance with the UNP? I think did you miss that because there's a drop in the link?
No. But I think I got the question.
Yeah.
See, it depends on who the individuals are. I think because it's a personality issue also. But I think if we come close, getting together a grand opposition coalition in order to make the 113 will be worth it, and we should certainly consider that if we come close, yes, and not win.
There are two things that are being pushed by a particular group in the Pudujana Perumuna. That is the group which is which backed by what is known as the Federation of Nationalist Organizations. And that is the abolishing of the 19th and the 13th Amendment. What is your view about that?
I mean, we are for the 13th Amendment and we are for the 19th Amendment. Whether it is the UNP led by Mr. Wickremesinghe or the UNP led by Mr. Premadasa, called the SJB, we stand by both the 13th and the 19th.
Yes. Anything else to add for our viewers today?
Yeah, I mean, what one needs to do is to be able to go beyond the petty politics and try to explain to the constituency what needs to be done to fix this nation, right? And first of all, there must be equality, and the belief that no matter whether you are Sinhalese, Tamil, Muslim, Burger, Chinese, whatever, that we are Sri Lankans. And I am disappointed that all the work we did during the last government to, create the Sri Lankan identity by, calling people Sri Lankan in their birth certificate only, uh, got implemented for one day, and it was reversed by no less a person than Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, right? So the creation of the Sri Lankan identity is crucial, and that is how we are going to be able to build that foundation that everything else will rest on. So that is something that I strongly believe in, and we must do everything we can to make sure that there is peace and harmony among the three main communities in Sri Lanka. So that's one, uh, legislation and otherwise. Now the second thing is we must understand that this country can only develop if we look outside and create competitive markets. So unless we are able to create competitive markets and look outside and move from producing simple products like shirts and trousers, move up the ladder to produce more complex products like electronics and software, then our ability to build a better Sri Lanka is very limited. I have something that I have been thinking about and working on and speaking in Parliament, which I believe is our ticket to success. And that is, if you look at the emerging economy, the world over, technology and gadgets and the internet and uh, moving away from fossil fuels to energy, provide, to energize the fourth industrial revolution. What do you see? You in the next so many years, no diesel or petrol driven vehicles will be out there on the streets. Electric cars, electric trains, and everything is going to be battery driven, right? And those batteries may come in small, pocket sized ones or large ones that will power, trains. And what is the wonder material that will be in that battery? It will be graphene, and graphene comes from graphite, and graphite, the world's purest graphite, comes from Sri Lanka. Under this earth, below the surface, is a lot of absolutely pure 99.997 pure vein graphite. So something I will do if I do get elected and into the next parliament is immediately bring in legislation to protect what is called supply critical material, and that is happening even in the United States, and then bring in the technology to start producing batteries and how those batteries can add value to other products. So we got to align ourselves. So I am going to take a bet that that is our ticket to success. And in order to get there, we need to do reforms to make sure that the workforce is able to understand what needs to be done and the technical expertise is available. So those are the kinds of things. And before we stop, I want to say I'm just not a voice box or just only talk. I have a vision for this country. I think outside the box, and I have proven to this country that I can deliver. I take credit for having delivered one of the best services this country has seen in number of decades, and that is 1990 Suez area. And a lot of people don't know how difficult it was to build this to what it is today. And I challenge anyone to show me anything that is more efficient than our 1990 source area. We are 24/7 across the country, and every single day we save lives. and it is an amazing feeling for the 1,500 of us who are involved in this. I should say, well, I am, so kind of the godfather because I'm no longer technically involved in it, but the people who I appointed continue to run it, and I must thank the president for having let me do that. um, uh, it's a wonderful feeling. So I have shown that I am able to deliver, and I have many other things that I can deliver if I do get the support of the people to do something for this nation. Thank you.
One more question is that when you talked about value-added services and or going to sort of next generation of products and stuff like that, you think our educational system that it's as it exists now can produce the people who can take that advantage?
No, we can't. So that's the issue. Among things that I didn't say I did was I'm the person who started the first smart classroom in Sri Lanka. When everybody was talking about tabs, I went ahead and started it in 2016, right? In what is called the CMS, Christian Missionary School, old school, 1822, which is called Sri Javadanapura Vidyalaya. Now there, it's an amazing experiment. People from other big schools, both public and private, have come to study this. And kids who are not interested in classwork, who are just sitting in the corner and chatting, are all actively engaged in learning. Instead of drawing the cell on the blackboard and them copying it on their notebook, now you have it right in front in your handheld device, big Samsung screen. You can turn it around, you can push it, you can cut it into two. Kids are so interested, you see. So we got to move towards more technology in education, and we got to start teaching more science, and engineering and mathematics, and certainly English, right? And if we do that, we can get to where we want to. But a caveat there is that we don't have the teachers that we need to have to teach science in the 10,000 schools, because only some under 2,000 schools have science in the advanced level stream. So therefore, technology is going to be the defining factor. So if we are able to really implement a good technology solution where kids in far away rural places are able to get the same sort of lesson a kid gets here in Colombo, then certainly we can start thinking about moving our workforce towards the kind of skills that they require to meet the demand of the fourth industrial revolution, the kind of good jobs that pay 250,000 rupees a month instead of 25,000 rupees a month at present. So yes, it can be done. We are a small country, just 20 million people, smaller than some of the big cities in India. It can be done. It can be done, right? You just need the political will. You need people with vision who have been able to deliver in the past. So that is why I want people to support me and others on my team.
But during the lockdown, when they tried to do some distance education, they discovered that only about 24% had any kind of internet connection, even a handheld device, and it was just impossible to bring all on board. So only a few urban kids could actually keep up with their work during that period, in those 3 months or so. So it is a huge gap that you have to cover, and that looks really very difficult in a short time.
No, it is not difficult. When I started 1990, people laughed at me. People ridiculed me. People said this can never be done. But look, the service today is as good as you get in Europe. It can be done. Technology is so powerful. How much is it going to cost? It's not going to cost a fortune. It is not. Technology is not that expensive. We have to use technology. Otherwise, if we wait to do it the traditional way, sort of grow organically, have trained teachers over the next decade and a half, we will fall behind. So we got to make a bold decision. We got to make some changes. You got to think outside the box. Only if you are able to think outside the box, we will find solutions to our problems, right? And you need strong people to do that.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Silva. That was an interesting chat. And everybody who joined us, that was Dr. Harsha De Silva, and he's the SJP candidate for Colombo district. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.